Hello everyone, I'm Mostafa El Halimi and I'm a graduate student at Memorial University of Newfoundland and a research assistant with TBTI. So I started working on this project as part of the uh, TBTI COVID-19 job initiative uh, with Dr. Ratana and Julia. So in this presentation, I am going to show you some tips on how to find data and how to best complete the small-scale fisheries template that we have shared with you. Uh, so first of all, I would like to start with a an overview of the structure of the template. So our template uh, has 5 parts, and each part is uh, contains several questions. So part one is about definition of small-scale fisheries or related terms. Part two is about the legal framework and institutional arrangement. Part three is about the key principles in the legislation and policy documents. Part four is specific provision and consideration for small-scale fisheries. And the last and fifth part is interaction and stakeholders participation. So before we get into this, let's first see where we can find information. So an excellent source to start with is the FAO fishery profile. So once you go into this website here, you'd find the countries of all, the profiles of all countries. And once you click in, you would find uh, uh, this page that provides a basic summary of the laws and legislations that pertain to fisheries, as well as the institutional arrangement of fisheries in the country. And the second source is the GlobalX. GlobalX would be useful in the second part of the template, where you will have to find the country legal system. So whether it's a civil law or a common law or a mixed law. And the next source, and is the most important source in this research, is the FAOLEX country profile. So once you go into the FAOLEX country profile, you would find many themes such as policies, legislations for aquaculture, climate change, environment, and there is also a fisheries section that is the most important section for us, because you will find a lot of information that we will need to complete the template in the fisheries section. So what to do with the information? For example, say we have all the documents. So to find a definition of small-scale fisheries, you would want to use keywords such as artisanal, small-scale, subsistence, or even some related terms such as craft or canoe. Say, for example, we want to find whether there is the small-scale fisheries participation in decision making is legally required or not. So you would search using keywords such as participation, collaboration, representation, and so on and so forth. And then we have to prioritize fisheries and fisheries-related instruments before going into relevant legal and policy document, but not fisheries-specific. This is particularly helpful in the third section or the third part of our template, where we try to find um, the key principles of small-scale fisheries, voluntary guidelines of the FAO in the fisheries law document. You may not find this, but you may use more generic laws such as Constitution for Human Rights, Gender Policy for Women's Rights, climate change policy for small-scale fisheries, adaptation to climate change. And when the legal and policy document speaks generally about fisheries, but you won't find any specific provision for small-scale fisheries, it can be assumed that the instruments cover small-scale fisheries generally because in this country or something like that, the small-scale fisheries are significant. Uh, and lastly, we try to provide as much details as possible. So now we start with the template and using Morocco as a case study. So here, the first section you would find are small-scale fisheries or related term legally defined in the constitution, law, or act. Uh, so here you may want to look into different uh, legal and policy instruments that pertain to fisheries and use the keywords that I've been talking about: small-scale fisheries, artisanal, subsistence, or even terms such as canoe or a craft. So the definition of small-scale fisheries uh, differs from one country to another. So for example, in Morocco, small-scale fisheries is fisheries that is usually carried out as a distance of less than 30 miles from the shore, from the coast by vessels of 50 gross tonnage or less. If you see, for example, another country such as Gambia, Gambia doesn't have a definition of small-scale fisheries, but it has a definition of artisanal fisheries. While if we see Costa Rica, for example, it has both small-scale fisheries and artisanal. The second question is small-scale fisheries captured or defined in other legal and policy instruments. Here, you may have to look into all the documents that we've been speaking about and use the keywords uh, to see whether the small-scale fisheries or artisanal or any related term is mentioned in this policy. So here in Morocco, you'd find the term artisans and artisanal, as well as small-scale fisheries. The third question, is there any other informal way that small-scale fisheries are referred to? Uh, in, in, in Morocco, there is no informal uh, definition or for small-scale fisheries. So now we go into the second part, which is the legal and institutional arrangement. Uh, so the first question is, what is the legal system in the country? You'd find this information in GlobalX. There is the link to GlobalX in the third slide, I think. The second question, what is the main fisheries legislation in the country? You'd find the main fisheries legislation mostly in the FOWLEX database. So just go to the FOWLEX fisheries section and you would find the main fisheries law. It's usually titled Fisheries Act or Fisheries Law or something like this. As for the amendments, once you go into the FOWLEX, you would scroll down you'd choose your main fisheries legislation, and you would scroll down and you'd find all the amendments for this law. And the third question, what is the main national policy? So for this, you may find this information in the FAO. You may find this information in the FAO policies section, or in the FAO fisheries summary, or even in the government that is responsible for fisheries. You'd go to their official website and you'd find what is their main national policy. And the fourth question, what is the national governmental authority that is primarily in charge of fisheries? This information can be found in the FAO fishery profile. The link is on the third slide of this presentation. So 5, what is the mandate of the national governmental authority? So you would find this either on the Fisheries Act or in the government official website, because in the government official website is an excellent source, because you will find a lot of information that we are looking for. Again, it depends on the countries. Some countries have excellent information in their official websites. others don't, but you would find the information either in the FAO fisheries summary or FOLEX profile. Is there a national or subnational governmental authority specifically in charge of SSF? For this question, again, it depends from one country to another. Some countries have centralized fisheries systems, other countries have decentralized fisheries systems, but the best thing to do here is to go to the government official website as well as the FAO fishery summary. As for part 3, so you may not find, in part 3, you may not find specific information on fisheries and fisheries related instruments. So as in the case of Morocco, then you may want to use more generic laws and policies such as Constitution for Human Rights and gender policy for gender equality and equity. Again, this depends or differs from one country to another. For example, Costa Rica has all these principles in their national development plan, and it's specific for fisheries. Here, for example, Morocco has a transparency law that is specific to fisheries. As for the ecosystem approach to fisheries, here you may find this information generally in the fisheries policy or the government official website, or even in the Fisheries Act. As for part 4, specific for provision and consideration for small-scale fisheries, here we see tenure rights. Tenure rights are defined or are different from one country to another. In the case of Morocco, the access to fisheries is guaranteed if you pay a tax fee in exchange for having access to fisheries. In countries such as Costa Rica, you would find that fisheries licenses are given to people who are proven to be in poverty as well. So this, again, it's very different from one country to another, but a good thing to start with is to look into the Fisheries Act and see what are the requirements for getting a fishing license. This is just a general rule, but it's not, it doesn't work, for example, in Canada, because Canada has provinces. It wouldn't work and then we have exclusive fishing area or priority access to fishery. So this can be found in the this can be found in the Fisheries Act. Then we have registration requirement for small-scale fisheries. This again depends from one country to another. You may find it in the Fisheries Act or the Fisheries Regulation, or sometimes even in the Shipping Act, as in the case of Morocco. So, and then we have monitoring, control, surveillance measures. I've noticed that many countries have been adopting these laws in the last decade. So Morocco adopted this law in 2014. Then we have social development, employment, decent work. For this specific section, you may want to look into different sources. Can be literature, can be the Fisheries Act or Fisheries Policy, can also be in the government official website. And here, as I said, we try to provide as much details as possible. So here I found things about health, livelihood and public infrastructure, remuneration system, and so on and so forth. And as for the labor rights or social benefits along the value chain, again, you'd find this across different sources, from literature review, government website, fisheries policy. For 7, capacity building, which is such as provision of access to education and training. Here you would find this information generally in the fisheries policies, or you'd find this in the government official website. for recognition of small-scale fisheries as professional workers. This is different from one country to another. You find some countries that gives a specific definition of a fisherman or small-scale fisherman. For example, in the case of Morocco, the small-scale fishermen are recognized by the government because you can't get on board of a boat or a vessel without having a seaman book. So once you have that seaman book, you automatically get uh, 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 the CNSS, which is uh, social security that protects your rights and everything. And then the responsible trade in fish and certification of fishery products from small-scale fisheries. You would find this generally in the FOWLEX legislative database. As for protection of women in SSF along the value chain, you would find, you may have to look into the FOWLEX database, into the policy section, see if there is anything in the gender policy of the country, and if not, you may want to look into the fisheries policy, or sometimes in the government official website. Um, as for small-scale fisheries and climate change, you'd find this generally in the fisheries policy or in the national plan for climate change or national policy for climate change. Use keywords such as fisheries or fishing or artisanal fishing or anything like this. And you should find information about small-scale fisheries adaptation to climate change. As for the fifth part, this is the interaction and stakeholder participation. So uh, here, for example, is there a representation of small-scale fisheries in decision-making, resource management, or resource management legally required at any level of governance? So you would find this in the FOWLEX database, in the fisheries section, or even in the FAO general summary, fisheries summary, or in the government official website. But in the case of Morocco, there is a specific law that that makes the participation of small-scale fish workers mandatory in the decision-making process. As for the last question, is there any interest, commitment for a more holistic form of governance or reform? This is mostly a question for experts who know what is going on in the country and whether there are policies under development or not. But you may also find this information in the FAO general profile, or so you scroll down and you'd find a section that is titled, I guess, projects, undergoing projects, and so you'll find whether there is something specific to fisheries or not. And that's it for my presentation. Thank you very much for following here. And if you have any questions, please send me an email here. Thank you very much.